everybody, welcome to my channel. I had my double mastectomy today, and admittedly I feel a little crazy trying to record a video today, but I told you all that I would keep everyone apprised of my recovery and my progress, and so here I am. So let's talk about it. It was a really long day. It's a really long day today. I had to be at the doctor's office by 10, and my surgery was at 12:45. And you can tell, obviously, I'm really scratchy from the anesthesia pumping air down my throat for many hours today. But so surgery's at 12:45. The surgery was expected to take 4 hours. It actually took a little bit less, which was great. And then I had to be in recovery for about 2 hours. And then I went home. So I'm home. I've been home for a little bit. So trying to just kind of record my thoughts for everyone before they fade too much. As you can see, I'm still marked up and everything. We'll talk about that. So this is what I experienced today, getting the double mastectomy and lymph node removal. So I got to the hospital at 10, and to be expected, they're not really letting people go into the hospital with you. So my partner and I stayed outside waiting as long as we could. And then, of course, once they called me back, I had to say goodbye and head inside. And it is tough. Like we've heard how many countless stories of people during this pandemic who have not been able to be with their loved ones during surgeries and other things. And this is outpatient. So I got to see him, 8 hours later. But I really do feel for the people who have to be in the hospital for extended periods of time with very limited interaction. I had amazing doctors and nurses today. Everyone is just so friendly. Everyone is so supportive. It's very, very, very kind. So I get in around 10. They do the check-in process, and they pull me back about 10:30. Said goodbye to Matt, and went in. And what they make you do is you have to take these antiseptic wipe things and wipe down your whole body. It's super sticky, and frankly, I think it's a little itchy. You have to air dry. And once you're air dried, you put on your gown, and then you hurry up and wait, basically. Like I said, amazing doctors and nurses. It's just that everything feels like it takes forever, but that's also, I think, a lot of the anticipation of what's going to happen. So next thing that happened is the nurse came in to give me my IV. I hate IVs. I don't like needles in general, but for something about IVs makes me super, super anxious. And they did it in my hand, so you can still see the thing here. I hate it because it feels like every time I move, I'm about to jostle it or pull it out. But she actually did a really good job. I was very pleasantly surprised. I've had some IVs that were just awful to get in because my nerves or veins decided to collapse on the doctor, and that shit is terrible. So they put that in, and then the next thing that happened, I didn't know this was going to happen, is that a doctor came over, or a nurse came over, I'm not sure which, and what they did is they put a dye contrast on. So the cancer's on the left side, or was on the left side. Hopefully it's all gone now. The cancer was on the left side, and what they want to do is make sure that that the cancer hasn't spread to the lymph nodes. So what they do is they put a dye on the left side, and they put it in, and what it's supposed to do is it goes into those lymph nodes, and you're able to see the first lymph node, the one that's closest to the cancer. So that way they're not trying to pull out a bunch of different lymph nodes. They can pull the one that's closest to the cancer to see if it has spread. And then if it's spread to that lymph node, I guess they go and pull a couple of more. I'm not really clear how that works, but that's kind of the way they explained it to me. That needle was crazy. It's so silly how such a small thing can hurt, but what it does is it goes just over under that top layer of skin, and it creates like a bubble, right? It creates a bubble as the fluid goes in, and it stretches the skin, and it feels like a really strong bee sting. I know, I'm totally a wimp, I guess. I didn't think I was a wimp, but it hurt. I was so surprised how much it hurt. And I'm like, so to be fair, she warned me. She said a lot of people find this very painful. I guess maybe because of all the nerve endings right there in your skin, but it was not pleasant. And then that needs to take an hour or so to actually absorb so that they can see the lymph nodes. Um, so then we're waiting for that to happen. Oh, and then there was this other thing. So super funny. They when they got the IV in, one of the first things they injected me with is an anti-nausea and vomiting medication because they don't want you vomiting and having nausea on the operating table, which I totally support. I do not want to aspirate and die while on the operating table today. That's lovely. But what she said before she injected it, is she said, all right, I need to warn you. A lot of women have reported that this medication makes them feel like there's a tingling sensation on their lady bits. Said, a tingling sensation? Like a sexual tingling sensation? A foreplay tingling sensation? Like, what are we talking about here? And so interesting, she said a lot of women experience what feels like ants crawling up and down the labia. And I was like, that's disconcerting. And she said that she always warns people. It doesn't happen with everyone, but she always warns people because she said she'd forgotten early in her career, she'd forgotten to warn people a couple of times, and they panicked thinking that they were having a major allergic reaction to this medication. And, and that would be bad. So she said, this is what it could feel like. Unfortunately, did not have a tingling sensation, but it was super interesting. What I did feel is like there was this heightened sense of my pulse in lower extremities. It's like the pulse. We all have pulses in a lot of places, right? We don't normally think about it, but I could very distinctly feel in that area my pulse very strong, very interesting. It only lasted for a couple of minutes and then it was gone, but I thought that was odd. So that happened, and then, like I said, they did the dye contrast thing. Oh, and the dye contrast thing, she did warn me that it's going to make me pee blue for 2 days and not to panic. Don't call the ER saying that I'm peeing blue after my surgery. So that was good. And then after we were all set up there, of course, they got the blood pressure cuff on. They got the leads on to track my heart and all of that. And then they talked to the doctors. And my surgeon comes in, and she and I talk for a minute and make sure I have no questions. And then the plastic surgeon came in. So the plan for today was to get the double mastectomy, remove the lymph nodes from the left side that they needed to test, and then put the expanders in all at the same time so I didn't have to do another surgery later. And then what the surgeon did is they came in, and as you can see, he marked me all up. I'll have a picture attached. He said the goal is to make everything, when it goes back together, look as balanced and seamless as possible. Realizing, of course, there's still going to be very significant scars, but hopefully with time they'll fade and look normal. So that was interesting. From there, it was pretty much a waiting game. Then I talked to the anesthesiologist. Super nice guy, very very dry, but I appreciate straightforward and dry in a doctor. That's, I think, very helpful for me. I know a lot of people want a very cuddly bedside manner. I just want to know what are we doing? What are the side effects? What's it going to look like? Move on. Super nice guy, just very dry. And we talked about the plan for the anesthesiology. And so some backstory for you guys. About a year ago, I had another surgery. It's called an oophorectomy. I had my left ovary removed also because of a cancer scare. And fortunately, that one did not turn out to be cancer. But during that surgery, they intubated me, which means they put a hose down your throat and they make sure you breathe properly. Well, after that surgery, I had trouble breathing for 3 or 4 weeks. It was awful. The first week was brutal. I was having to sit up in bed to sleep, propped up on like 4 pillows because I just couldn't get a good airway. My chest was tight. It was awful. And to be fair, it's on me. I didn't effectively communicate to my doctor when they checked in how bad it was. I just assumed it was normal because I was intubated, and I knew they did warn me that it was going to be sensitive and that I was going to have some soreness for potentially a couple of days. But I talked to the anesthesiologist. I said, hey, just so you know, this is what happened last time. The doctor told me later that it was not normal, that I should have called her sooner for major breathing issues. And I said, I don't know if it changes anything in your plan. I just wanted you to know that I had a really hard time after that. And if there's anything we can do to make that better, that would be amazing. And so he talked through a couple of options. And what he ended up actually deciding is not to do a full intubation. They were going to use the mask instead, with the plan, of course, to intubate if anything went wrong. And oh my gosh, such a difference. I'm talking to you right now. I'm not terribly winded. My throat is very sore from air pumping down my throat, all for however many hours of the surgery it was. But I feel pretty good. And that is not how I felt after the oophorectomy last year. I was just miserable, and I was having to do a lot of the short gasping breaths, and I felt so tight and sore. So super excited. If I can advocate for any of you to do anything, is talk to your doctors. Make sure they know what your prior experiences are, and that, what went well, what didn't go well. Even if you don't know, like I had no idea what the prior anesthesiologist did aside from full intubation. I have no idea what chemicals he used or medications he used or numbing agents he used. And that's fine, but he's able to look back and hopefully see what that was and make adjustments so it makes it better for you. So that was great. And I realize I'm jumping back and forth because it is currently after the surgery and I'm feeling pretty good. But that is a conversation I had before the surgery with the anesthesiologist. So anyways, after meeting with all of the doctors, I met with so many doctors and so many nurses who were going to be helping with the surgery. They finally were getting ready to wheel me in. One of the things they had asked me is, do I want any anti-anxiety medication put into my IV with about a half an hour before going in to the operating room, and just to help me relax and everything else. And I said no, and I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling smooth. And let me tell you, the moment they wheeled me out of the little curtained room to head to the operating room, my anxiety went through the roof, just through the roof. And I'm like starting to cry, and I'm like tearing up, and I'm trying to hide it because it's my mistake. I should have asked for the anti-anxiety. And I was like super, super emotional. I don't know what it is about sitting in that room going, maybe I was convincing myself, maybe this isn't actually happening, maybe this is all a dream. But the moment they started wheeling me toward the operating room, my anxiety just massively flared, and I was super upset. But to all the nurses' credit that were helping getting me to that location, they were so sweet, and they said, "Don't worry, we're going to take care of you. We're going to get you through this. We're going to be fine." And it was, obviously. So then they get me in the room. I'm wheeled into the room on the gurney bed thing that I'm on, and then they have you slide over onto the actual operating table. Then what happens is they have these little arm rests, and you put one of your arms on one. Now the IV was in this arm, so it's completely off to the side to the right, lying flat, so that they have easy access to the IV. And then the anesthesiologist starts talking to you, and he's talking about how I'm injecting this. You're going to feel dizzy. You're potentially going to feel dizzy. You're potentially going to feel like you're flying or you're floating. None of those things happened. But all of a sudden I was out. I didn't feel anything between 100% and 0%. So I guess that's good. And knocked out, and woke up 3-4 hours later. Once I was in the recovery room, I hate that feeling of not being lucid. I don't know if anyone else has that. I just hate it. It feels so out of control. And I'm a little bit of a control freak, especially with my own life and my health and everything else. And so I really didn't like it. So I had to kind of take a couple deep breaths and go, we're just going to go back to sleep. And maybe when you wake up, you'll have a little more of your faculties. And so fortunately, I was able to reason myself into calming down and trying to get some more shut-eye. So about an hour after my initial waking up, I was feeling a lot more cognizant of what was going on around me, and they were super nice. They gave me some cranberry juice and some crackers to snack on because I hadn't eaten since yesterday. I still haven't eaten anything since yesterday except for those graham crackers, Jell-O, and some cranberry juice. But honestly, my stomach doesn't feel like food. So hopefully, I'm going to force myself to eat some soup in a little bit. But otherwise, I just feel fine. And then we waited, and the reason I'm waiting the most is that They want me to be as lucid as possible. They want to give it about 2 hours after the surgery to watch you, monitor you, make sure that there's no side effects from any of the medications they're giving you. They want to make sure that your pain is controlled and go from there. Oh, and I forgot to mention let's talk about pain medication. So one of the unique things about me is that I'm fairly non-responsive to most pain medications. What non-responsive means is that the pain receptors in your brain, which is what medication is trying to hit and say, Janae does not feel pain about X, it just doesn't work for a lot of pain medications, which is super, super unfortunate. I learned that many years ago when I had, I don't remember what I had pain medication for, but I was prescribed Vicodin for something. And I think it was wisdom teeth surgery. Nothing. It didn't do anything. And so I learned very quickly, okay, Vicodin does nothing for me. Well, I had an ankle surgery in 2014, and I told the doctor this, and he prescribed me Norco, which is just a stronger version of Vicodin. So I ended up calling him at like 2 a.m, his office, hysterical, because I was in so much pain, and the guy didn't listen to me, and it prescribed me Norco anyway. Well, so I make it very clear when I talk to doctors now, and I've had a handful of 3 surgeries since then, 4 surgeries since then, and I make it very clear that Vicodin Norco doesn't work for me. So a couple years later, I had another surgery, and I was prescribed Percocet. Well, my roommate had been prescribed Percocet a couple years prior, and I saw him on Percocet, and holy shit, he was flying high. The world was his oyster. Life was great. He was feeling no pain, having a great time, and I'm like, that is what I want. So that was a couple years later, and I got Percocet prescribed, and it mostly did nothing. It took the edge off of the pain, which is fine. You know, I don't need the pain to go away. I just want it to be manageable. Took the edge off the pain. I was able to function. I was able to get through without having to, supplement with booze or other things that might help. So I told the doctor this today, and I said, I just want you to understand my history with pain medications. I haven't had a lot of surgery, so I don't know everything that works or not. But I said Percocet has essentially worked. Vicodin Norco does not. Please just try to prescribe me something that you think will be effective. So what they ended up prescribing me was gabapentin, which from my understanding is a pain blocker, as well as prevents you from having seizures. And then they prescribed me oxycodone for breakthrough pain, and they prescribed me a stool softener. Stool softener is really important for those of you on certain types of medications. You need to make sure you're asking your doctor about this. I have a story that I'll tell you at some point of my sister was prescribed Vicodin many years ago, and the doctor didn't prescribe her stool softeners at the same time. And it was a whole incident. It was terrible. So making sure you get those stool softeners is actually really important. So that was a great conversation. Again, talk to your doctors. Let them know your history so that they can prescribe what works. Admittedly, I don't know if the gabapentin and the oxycodone are going to work as well as I hope they do. But as long as they can take the pain off so I'm not miserable, that's all I need. I'm good to go. Let's talk about drains. So one of the things that's going to happen if you have this surgery is they're very likely going to have to put drains in. So with me, obviously, the way they explained it to me is they've removed all this tissue, they put in expanders, but this is a big area that used to be like this, right, with the boob, and now it's flat, and it's going to start filling up with fluid as you're recovering, and they need to make sure that those drains are there so you don't have all this fluid build up. Very simplified explanation. When I become a little more conscious and lucid, I'll be happy to explain in more detail what that means and why. But what they do is I have 2 drains in, one on each side. And if you don't like the sight of blood or things that look like blood, forward ahead to this time right here, or you may not like this section at all. And what they did is they gave me this. So I came prepared. I bought this shirt that I'm going to show you in a second. It has little pockets in the sides, specifically designed for double mastectomy. And so these drains can actually go right inside there so that I don't have to tuck it in somewhere or attach it to my shirt or do anything crazy. So this is what, it's really interesting. So they give you these drains. There's one on each side. You have to take it. You actually have to empty it yourself every day, but you have to measure it, to measure what's in the bottle, dump it out, measure it, and then record it in a log for them to track how much drainage it is. Once you're only draining a certain amount per day, that's when they will pull the drains out and no longer need to do this. But this shirt is amazing. I just tuck it in. I've got a drain on each side, and then I can button it up. The other thing they gave me is this, they put this compression shirt over the surgery area. So there's bandages under this. This is not a bandage. This is a Velcro compression shirt to keep things nice and tight. And so that's going to help contain it and hopefully contain the pain as well. So anyway, I know that's a lot of information. Overall, that was my day. It wasn't terrible. It certainly wasn't the best day of my life. But I'm home now. My partner picked me up from the hospital, and the drive home, I admittedly was feeling so lethargic that I kind of halfway slept all the way home. I feel like this burst of energy I had about an hour ago is probably going to fade fast, but that's why I wanted those, like, while I'm feeling good, let's throw on some mascara and some lipstick and do this video for everyone. Because I have a feeling that's not going to last very long. So that was today, and here we go. And I'll keep you posted on my journey, and lots of love to those of you dealing with the same thing right now, and I wish you the best.